Some of the answers here are complex, and there's one in there that might confuse you, one of the responses, so make sure you know the actual, this is a definition question. It's not an example.
Yeah, it's not an example.
Okay. There will be questions about the library issues, like the periodical question and some of those. There will be one that's which one's not one of the databases on the library, so they'll make up something, and so they might ask you that. So make sure you know, you'll probably recognize it just from looking at it. But let's see, they're going to be asking about illustrations, whether it's a brief illustration. They're going to give you an example of something that's an illustration of a point you're trying, a proof point, and they're going to say, is this an extended illustration or a brief one, a statistic, an expert testimony, or a pure analogy? So read the detail, and when you see how much information it is, it'll be obvious. It's not one or two, it's not a 2 or 3 words, it's several sentences. So you'll guess that one probably then. It's a lot of information. So is it brief or extended? Okay. Okay, another question. When compared to written language, oral language is different from in what way? So what oral communication is different than written communication in what way? And the options here is more formal, it allows for repetition, is more personal, does not facilitate interaction between the speaker and the audience, and all of the above. So just make sure you know the difference between, and it's in your book. This is one of the book questions. Okay. They are going to ask you about a couple questions about metaphors and similes. So make sure you know which. A couple will be examples, and you'll have to say which one it is. So remind yourself what the key words are when it says is or like. You know, a simile says something's like something, and a metaphor says you use something like somebody runs like the wind. I'm sorry? That's a simile. When you say someone is the wind, that's a metaphor. Okay? So, you know, they are the wind because they run so fast. Okay? There will be questions about, go to page 237 in your book, you'll find the answer. In a public speaking situation, the speaker should pay attention to how emotions are communicated when delivering a speech, because emotions could be catching. And it'll say this represents what theory. So if you go to page 237, it'll talk about how to deal with emotions, how they're being communicated. You'll find the answer. Okay. Let's see. Without uttering a word, an audience can be quieted by holding up the palm of your hand to calm a noisy crowd. This is a nonverbal function of, and the answer's on page 245 in your book. Okay. Aristotle identified 3 general methods to persuade. Remember the ethos, logos, and pathos? Well, they make up words like pathos, logos, and phargos. Actually, I love that one. Or ethos, pathos, and logos. Or ethos, pathos, or mogos.
So
they're just making up words in some of these. And logos, pathos, and Elmo. So make sure you know what the right ones are. All right?
And which things were these?
That's Aristotle.
Aristotle.
They're going to ask question of value, question of fact, question of policy. So they're going to give you an example, and you're going to have to, they'll give you a central idea, and you have to say which one it is. So make sure you remember, on the PowerPoint, I listed the words that will give you the clue. If something is something, that's a fact. If it says you should do it, it's a policy. And if it says something should be valued by giving standards, establishing standards. Hy-Vee's better than Baker's or something like that. Something's better than, then that's a value. Those are the three most commonly used types. Okay. There's another question about credibility. The type of credibility established by giving careful thought to your appearance, establishing eye contact, and having your credentials as well as accomplishments presented is known as initial credibility, derived credibility, terminal, deserved, or righteous. Anybody know the answer to that one?
Initial.
Wait, what was?
I don't think that's right.
What was the question?
Yeah.
It is initial, I'm sorry. I was looking at thinking derived because the eye contact, but it's basically at the beginning of your speech when you get up and establish credibility from the beginning. That is called your initial credibility. The type of credibility established by giving careful thought to your appearance, establishing eye contact, and having your credentials as well as accomplishments presented to the audience is known as. Okay? And the last one I want to tell, because I think it's a trick, this was one of those that I thought fit the trick question, because it's a line in the book that is, nobody would have, it's not something you would just go, oh, that's really important to know. So I'm going to give you a heads up on it. There you go. There's a question about, okay, how many preliminary bibliography resources does your textbook suggest for a 10-minute speech?
Holy cow.
It's on page 141. Look it up. That's probably the one question I thought, the only one in here that I thought was kind of mean.
144.
That,
Can you read the question again?
Can you read the thing again?
yeah.
Preliminary what?
Just a little tiny.
Okay. How many preliminary bibliography resources does your textbook suggest for a 10-minute speech? Page 141 in chapter 5, and let's see, 11.
One per minute.
We'll do like 6 minutes.
It's actually 8 to 10. The problem is, the question D is 8 to 10, and the other one is 10 to 12. That's going to blow people up. So I criticize the question. I don't know if she's going to change it, but
So the answer is 8 to 10?
it's 8 to 10. Okay? But if you read on, it does give you the rule of thumb.